Yo, what is up guys? This is Heath Reviews, the show where a little white boy sits in his room and talks about hip-hop music. Today I am going to be reviewing Tyler, the Creator's 5th studio album, Igor, which was released in May 2019, and I know, like, some of you may think,
but why are you releasing the review right now? Like, shouldn't you have done this like months ago?
Well, I want to talk about this masterpiece. So yeah, Igor is Tyler, the Creator's 5th studio album, and this is essentially Tyler expanding his sound and image to different areas. This album follows from Tyler, the Creator's previous album, Flower Boy, which was released back in 2017, which was a massive success. It's one of my favorite albums. So yeah, you could say Tyler had a lot of expectations coming into the release of this album, Igor. So Tyler only gave us like a couple of weeks before the release of this album for like build up and hype for it. He had some competition during this time of releasing this album, such as DJ Khaled. But Tyler branded this album as more than just a hip-hop album. So up until its release, it was only getting more and more hype and more interest for us to see what Tyler was going to become as an artist. And yeah, let's just say the dude did not disappoint at all. So first thing to note about this album is that it's very different to Flower Boy. So while Flower Boy was a little bit more like a hip-hop R&B record, Igor is essentially taking the influence from Flower Boy and pushing it into different areas. Some of these different areas that he like pushes it to is such as like soul, funk, pop more, and still sticks for R&B and hip-hop. He really experiments a lot on this album. And while Flower Boy follows Tyler becoming more comfortable into who he is as a human and an artist and coming to grips with himself, Igor is essentially Tyler, the breakdown of Tyler as a human in the concept of a breakup situation. So while Flower Boy and Igor are essentially like related in examining Tyler, the Creator, as a human in that sense, these are both also entirely different records. And how did he manage to do that? Well, one of the first things he managed to do with this is he had a strong concept. So the overall concept of this album is Tyler going through a breakup with a man he loves that wants to reunite with his ex. And while breakup albums have been done like so much in the music landscape that like it's like basically overly saturated in the material, Igor manages to stand out as its own thing. And Tyler, I believe, does that through his unique and modern perspective on the situation. One thing you will notice with the approach Tyler goes for in this album is the persona or the character he plays in it. From the title itself, it's easily shown as the character of Igor. What I believe Tyler tries to represent through this character of Igor is a man that represents from all of the emotions that build up within this whole breakup situation, the kind of like monster that comes out of it. So while that's a more simple way of putting it, it does make sense as track by track it covers the emotional conflictions that come with going through grief in a breakup. Some examples being the most popular track, EARFQUAKE, being a plead for his lover to come back to him. Then to the next track, I think, which is essentially Tyler trying to process the information or the emotions he now has. And then throughout the rest of this album, it kind of goes through all the different emotions that comes with grief, all until the end of the album where he finally accepts that this is just not meant to be for him. And Tyler does this in a way that it is all very personal to him. And this personal like take onto the whole situation is what makes it so relatable to the audience. And it's this personal take that makes the concept of the album so strong. But while there's these lyrics and the concept that he talks about throughout the album, it is nothing without the awesome delivery he has. And Tyler, I really believe, pushes himself the most on this part of the album. On most of Tyler's previous work, I've never actually like heard him use this much like effect on his voice and this much singing as much as he does on Igor. And previously he has mainly like relied on his low grunting rapping style, and while that rapping style is still very much on this album, he has instead strayed away from that heavy dependence on that delivery and has tested himself in different areas. This is mainly due to the effects he puts on his voice while he raps, while he sings, just so he sounds different and overall supports the ideas and the emotions that come out. And what's been the most prominent throughout this whole album is his singing voice, which we've never actually heard this much of on a single album from him. And his singing voice is mainly performed in falsetto or with so many effects on it. And Tyler actually explains that the reason for all these effects on his natural singing voice is actually because he really dislikes the sound of his natural singing voice, or his natural voice overall. Yet somehow, with manipulating the sound of his voice, he still manages to somehow create a personal and a vulnerable sound that go with the concept. So essentially, Tyler has really pushed himself to different areas on this part of his sound, and has made him more than just a performer that focuses on hip-hop. He now has become more versatile in his performances. But as well as the different manipulations he puts on his voice, he also manages to put the emotions underneath the delivery of his voice. With some tracks he brings a tone of aggression, some tracks being a nice slow melodic singing to express his vulnerability. But while his voice is delivered in so many ways, it would be nothing without the amazing production that's all over this album. So with the sound and the production of this album, I believe that is the selling point. To the opening track, IGOR'S theme, that sets us up with a heavy synth paradise that's going to be throughout this whole album. This consistent sound makes the whole album sound so interesting because he hasn't really experimented with a sound like this before. What I find a lot of artists can do and get wrong is when they find a unique sound that brings them success, but then they overly saturate or overdo the whole sound, and then it ends up every single song sounding very similar. But Tyler has managed on this album not to play it safe and take more risks, experiment more with the sound, and move into different genres, switch between them. So while one track is an 80s dance funk song, the next track could possibly be a soft, slow R&B song, to the next track being a hardcore hip-hop banger. And that's what makes the synth instrument he uses throughout this album so important. Because while he's combining different genres and experimenting with the sound, the synth instrument that he works with combines all of these different genres into sounding together, and it prevents the whole album from sounding really out of place or any track feeling messy. And what makes the production so impressive as well is how it complements the feelings and ideas he puts on each track. Every single track on this album is fitting, and all the genres on here all play a purpose into the track's ideas. And that's why when Tyler raps aggressively on a certain track such as What's Good or New Magic Wand, it's backed up by this roaring bass and high-pitched synth noises, and it makes the whole track feel chaotic and complement all the aggression he puts under his lyrics. Or when it's a soft harmonic delivery, such as on EARFQUAKE or A Boy Is a Gun or Puppet, it's more moving melodic synths and light drum kicks that really support these emotions that come through. So essentially, without this amazing production throughout this album, then the whole album probably would have sounded completely different. And we cannot forget about the great use of features throughout this album. There is a large list of uncredited features on this album that play a really important part in each track that they are on. Some being more recognizable than others, such as Playboy Carti on EARFQUAKE with his signature Cartonese flow where you don't know what the fuck he's saying, still somehow sounds fucking lit. Or Kanye West on Puppet, or Solange on I Think. But not only the noticeable features playing an important part on each track, it's also the behind the scenes work that comes in as well. Such as Pharrell Williams, who handled some of the production on Are We Still Friends, and is also a very big inspiration for Tyler. So it worked well and added a new flavor to the song. Or to Lil Uzi Vert, who actually lended some wailing vocals on the opening track IGOR'S theme and it took me a while to notice that, but I didn't actually know he was on the track at first. And all of these features bring such small details to each song, but they also play a massive part in bringing new flavors to the track and making them sound very unique and different. But overall, I think that the different styles Tyler experimented with on this album, the strong concept, the versatile deliveries he puts on every track, the amazing production with that synth instrument, the great use of features throughout the album, it altogether gives us what I believe is one of Tyler's crowning moments in his discography and his whole career. This album truly resonates with his audience and gives us new insight into the whole breakup situation and how mature Tyler has become throughout the years. And while Flower Boy is just as good of an album, it's really hard to compare these two albums and see which one's better or not, because these are two completely different and unique projects on their own. So overall, I give this album a 9 out of 10. I absolutely loved it. I highly recommend you check it out. What do you think of this album? Leave a comment down below on your opinion on it. I like hearing your opinions. Leave a like and subscribe on this video if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Peace.